If you ever want to know what real horror feels like, try waking up in a hospital bed completely paralyzed, while the man who vowed to love you leans over your body and whispers, "When she's gone, everything falls into place." You can't scream. You can't move. You can't even blink fast enough for anyone to notice. But you can hear. You can hear everything. My name is Grace Miller. And 3 months ago, I learned the ugliest truth a wife can learn, that sometimes the person sleeping beside you doesn't want to hold you. They want to outlive you. I remember the hum of the ventilator, the sting of dried tears on my temples, the sharp, intoxicating scent of disinfectant that filled the room. But most of all, I remember his voice, calm, certain, practiced. "It's better this way," James said. "She won't feel a thing." And then her voice, light, sugary, almost excited. "How long until we're free, babe?" "Free, free." As if my death were a set of keys. People always imagine betrayal as a dramatic explosion, shouting, slamming doors, tears thrown across kitchens. But the worst betrayal? It happens quietly. Soft voices, closed blinds, whispers sharpened into knives, and I heard every blade. If you're listening to this right now, don't scroll, because this isn't just my story. This is a warning for anyone who trusts too deeply, loves too blindly, or says, "He would never do that to me." Trust me, he would. They would. And some of them already have. Before I take you into the darkest 2 weeks of my life, comment below, "I choose to live." You might think it's nothing, but sometimes one sentence is enough to pull someone else back from the edge. Ready? Let me take you to the night everything shattered. If I had known how quickly a life could crack, I would have paid more attention to the small sounds. A phone buzzing face down. A message deleted a little too fast. A smile held a beat too long. But when you're in love, you don't hear warning bells. You hear excuses and call them understanding. Before everything collapsed, my life looked painfully ordinary. The kind of life you'd pass on a Manchester street without noticing. A semi-detached house in Chorlton with ivy crawling along the side. A garden where I tried and failed to grow tomatoes every year. A quiet job in social care. The kind of work that changes nothing and everything at the same time. And James, my husband of 7 years, the man I believed I would grow old with. People used to say we were steady, a word that feels reassuring until you realize it's also what people say about a bookshelf that looks stable, right before it collapses. James worked in finance, spreadsheets, meetings, late-night urgent reports. I used to joke that his laptop got more affection than I did. He always laughed. I always thought we were fine. But hindsight is a cruel editor. It shows you scenes you didn't know were important. Like the morning I made him tea and he didn't drink it. Or the night he slept with his back to me, not facing the window like usual, but away from me. Or the Saturday he said he was at a team-building brunch and came home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. Tiny cracks, but cracks become fractures, and fractures become fault lines. Sometimes I wish the truth had hit me all at once, a single explosion instead of 1,000 silent cuts. But no, my unravelling was slow. The day Chloe appeared, James introduced her like she was nothing. "New assistant," he said casually, "helps with scheduling, emails, frees up my time." She was 25, blonde, confident in that effortless way only people who've never been burned by life can be. She shook my hand with a polished smile, the kind that says, "I know something you don't." I ignored it. Women are conditioned to ignore a lot of things. But the way she looked at James, not admiration, not respect, but possession. Like she had already claimed a future that still belonged to me. James didn't notice, or he pretended not to, and I smoothed my dress and told myself I was imagining it. That's the problem with being the understanding wife. You understand until you're drowning. The first real sign It was subtle. Heartbreak often is. I was washing dishes when his phone lit up on the counter. I didn't plan to look. But the message preview was impossible to ignore. Last night was perfect. Same time tomorrow? See. My breath caught. See Chloe. James snatched the phone before I could say anything. He didn't shout, he didn't panic, he smiled. That smile haunts me more than the crash, more than the hospital, more than the machines. Grace, it's a team event. Don't overthink it. Overthink, the favourite word of men who are hiding something. I wanted to confront him, demand the truth. But years of marriage had taught me one dangerous lesson. If you push too hard, you might lose everything. So I swallowed the suspicion like a stone, heavy, sharp, lodged in my chest. The distance James began coming home later. He started showering immediately, claiming the office air conditioning made him sticky. He wore cologne to work, something he'd never done before. At night, he lay beside me. But he wasn't with me. He was somewhere else, with someone else. Manchester felt colder that winter. Not outside. Inside our home. Sometimes I'd wake up and find him downstairs at 2 a.m, lights off, phone glowing blue in his hands. He would lock the screen the moment I stepped in. Couldn't sleep, he'd say, but you can always tell when someone's lie is too small for their voice. The moment that should have broken me, it was a Friday. I brought him lunch, a rare treat since he worked in Salford Quays, and I was in the city centre. His office was glass-walled, modern, expensive. I walked in with a warm container of pasta, feeling like a 1950s wife trying too hard. He didn't hear me. He was laughing. That warm, charming laughter he used to save only for me. And Chloe. She was sitting far too close, touching his arm lightly as she leaned forward. Her hand brushed his wedding ring. He didn't pull away. My stomach dropped hard enough to bruise. Chloe turned and saw me first. Her smile faltered, not from guilt, but from irritation, as if I was interrupting something she believed belonged to her. James stood up too quickly, startled, flustered. "Grace? Why are you here? Why are you here?" As if I was the intruder. I handed him the lunchbox. He didn't kiss me. He didn't even hug me. He said he was in a meeting, that I should have called. I walked out of his office feeling something crack inside me, quietly, discreetly. The kind of crack no one hears until it's too late. If you've ever ignored a red flag because you loved someone too much, comment, "I hear you." Your words might help someone else realize they're not imagining things. But the worst part? I still tried. I cooked dinner. I asked about his day. I pretended that our marriage wasn't bleeding out slowly, because the alternative, facing the truth, was too terrifying. But truth doesn't disappear when you avoid it. It grows. It sharpens. It waits. And sometimes it follows you. Straight into the driver's seat of your own car. But that's tomorrow's nightmare. Tonight, the last night before my world shattered, I climbed into bed beside James, closed my eyes and prayed I was wrong, that he loved me, that I mattered, that tomorrow would be ordinary, safe, familiar. I was wrong about everything. You always think disasters come with warning signs, a loud bang, a scream, a flash of something unmistakable. But the night my life changed forever began quietly. Too quietly. It was a Tuesday. Cold. Manchester rain smudging the world outside my windscreen like a watercolour painting left in the sink. I had stayed late at work, helping a teenager prepare for a safeguarding review. Nothing dramatic. Just another day in social care. Tired feet, endless paperwork, the quiet hope that maybe you helped someone breathe easier. I remember calling James on my way out. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. Not unusual, but not normal either. The car park was almost empty. A flickering street lamp buzzed overhead. My breath fogged the air as I unlocked my car. I didn't know that someone I loved, had already been there, had crouched beside the car. had touched parts you're never supposed to touch, had used a tool bought online, the kind used by mechanics or murderers. I didn't know any of that. I just started the engine, turned the heater on, and drove. The first sign, something was wrong. I was on Princess Parkway, traffic light, rain steady but manageable. The radio hummed quietly. An interview about NHS waiting times, then a faint grinding noise, barely noticeable, like metal brushing metal. I frowned, turned the radio down, listened. It stopped. I told myself it was nothing. Old cars make odd sounds in the cold. Tires slip, brakes whisper, belts complain. I kept driving. A mistake I'll relive for the rest of my life. The moment everything broke, I approached a junction and gently pressed the brake. Nothing happened. I pressed harder. Still nothing. The pedal sank to the floor like it wasn't connected to anything. My brain took a second too long to understand. Then panic detonated inside me. Cars ahead. Red lights glowing. Rain hammering down. Tires hissing across the wet road. I tried the handbrake. The car fishtailed violently. I fought the steering wheel, heart racing, breath locked inside my throat. People say your life flashes before your eyes. Mine didn't. What flashed was a single image, James's phone lighting up, Chloe's initials, his smile, the wrong kind of smile. The car hit the barrier, the world turned white, then black. Waking inside a nightmare, I don't know how long I was unconscious, hours, days, but I remember waking. And waking is the wrong word. It was awareness, like my mind floated to the surface while my body stayed locked underwater. I heard beeping, the rhythmic hiss of a ventilator, soft footsteps, medical voices. But when I tried to move, nothing. My limbs were slabs of stone. My throat burned. My chest ached with every assisted breath. I tried to open my eyes, a slit. Then darkness again. Someone spoke near me. A nurse, warm voice, northern accent. She's stable for now. For now. 2 words that settle into your bones like frost. I drifted in and out of a dreamless void, unsure where my mind ended and fear began. Then one day, I don't know which, I woke to the sound of footsteps, familiar footsteps. James. My heart surged, or I imagined it did. Relief washed over me. He came. He still cared. He still loved me. He sat beside me, held my hand, stroked my hair. Grace, he whispered, voice trembling. I'm so sorry this happened. For a moment, I believed him. For a moment, the world made sense. Then, another voice. Chloe. I waited until the nurses left, she murmured. You said we shouldn't risk being seen together too often. My blood ran cold. If the ventilator hadn't been breathing for me, I would have stopped. James exhaled loudly, frustrated, impatient, not grieving. It's been over a week, he muttered. The doctors think she won't recover. If they confirm it, we can discuss end-of-life options. End of life? My life? As if I was paperwork. Chloe's voice softened. Will the insurance pay out immediately? Insurance. Suddenly the grinding brakes made sense. The missed calls, the secrets, the distance. It wasn't life tearing us apart. It was James. And I couldn't speak, couldn't warn anyone, couldn't scream that he was the one who put me here. I was a prisoner, trapped in my own skin. The first tears I didn't know I could cry. I couldn't move, but tears, somehow, found a way out. Chloe noticed. Oh, that's just reflex, she said casually. Reflex. As if my body was nothing more than a broken machine. James squeezed my hand. Soon, babe, he whispered to Chloe. We'll be free soon. That was when something inside me shifted. Up until that moment, I had been terrified. Now I was something else. A witness, a listener, a woman silently gathering the words that would one day destroy him. Even if I died, I wanted the truth to survive. The longest night. When James and Chloe left, the room felt colder. empty, hostile. It was the first night I stayed awake the entire time, because fear made sleep impossible. I listened to the machines, memorizing their patterns. I listened to footsteps, door hinges, nurses changing shifts. Every sound mattered. Every sound meant I was still alive. The darkness stretched endlessly, and for the first time I wondered, what if he succeeded? What if tomorrow's meeting is the one where they pull the plug? What if no one ever knows the truth? I wanted to live, not out of hope, but out of defiance. If you're still reading, comment. I trust my intuition. Someone else might need to see those words to escape a danger they can't yet name. A shift in the air. Just before dawn, I heard a different set of footsteps, soft, quick, purposeful. A woman's voice, Aisha, the same nurse from earlier, the one who never treated me like a lost cause. She leaned over me, adjusting a tube. "Grace," she whispered almost to herself. "I swear you're trying to tell me something." Her fingers paused on my cheek. "You cried," she murmured, and that wasn't reflex. She looked directly into my barely open eyes. "If you can hear me, give me anything. A blink, a twitch, a sign." I tried. God knows I tried. Something sparked. My eyelid moved, just 1 millimeter. But she saw it. Aisha's breath caught. Then she whispered words that saved my life. "You're in there. I know you're in there, and I'm not letting anyone give up on you." In that moment, for the first time since the crash, hope didn't feel like a lie. It felt like a lifeline. People think the hardest part of surviving is the pain, the surgeries, the tubes, the weight of your own body refusing to obey you. They're wrong. The hardest part is having a mind that screams while your body stays silent. But that morning, the morning I managed to blink for Aisha, something inside me shifted. For the first time since the crash, I wasn't just alive. I was present. I was someone who could fight back, or at least try. Aisha's revelation, Aisha didn't run to tell the doctors immediately. She didn't scream or call for backup. She closed the blinds. Then she whispered, trembling, "Grace, I need to be absolutely sure. Blink twice if you can understand me." I focused harder than I've ever focused on anything in my life. 1 blink, a pause, 2nd blink. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God!" she breathed. "You're conscious." She sank onto the chair beside me, visibly overwhelmed. "Grace, I don't know how long you've been like this, but I promise you're safe now. I'll figure out what to do." But she didn't know the truth. She didn't know I wasn't afraid of the machines or the coma or the paralysis. I was afraid of James. I blinked once, the only way I could plead for her attention. Aisha wiped her eyes and leaned close. "All right," she whispered. "Tell me. Blink once for yes, twice for no. Is it about your injuries?" 2 blinks. "Is it about your husband?" 1 blink. Her face paled. "Grace, did he do something to you?" If I could have sobbed, I would have. 1 blink. Her breath shook. She clutched my hand gently, carefully, as if I were glass about to break. Okay. Then we go slowly. Don't panic, all right? We will find a way." But panic was all I had lived on for days. Still, in that moment, Aisha became more than a nurse. She became my only bridge back to the world. The first attempt at communication, Aisha returned after her shift ended, hair loosened, still in scrubs, holding a laminated letterboard. "I printed this myself," she whispered conspiratorially. "We'll try spelling. Move your eyes left for the first half of the alphabet, right for the second. Then blink when I land on the right letter." It sounded simple. It wasn't. It was exhausting. Like trying to lift a mountain with my eyelashes. But I didn't care. I needed to tell her everything. The breaks, the insurance, the whispers, the plan to let me go. Aisha touched my forehead softly. "All right, Grace, let's start. I'm here with you." She pointed at the left side of the chart. I blinked. She narrowed the selection. A, B, C, D. I blinked at D. It took nearly 20 minutes to spell the first word. D-A-N-G-E-R. Her eyes widened as if she'd been plunged into cold water. "Danger," she repeated. "Grace, who? Who's dangerous?" I spelled again, slow, tortured but certain. J-A-M-E-S. Her hand froze mid-air. "Oh my God," she whispered. The second proof. The next word took even longer. My eyes stung. Tears blurred the letters. Aisha had to keep wiping them gently with gauze, but I forced myself onward. B-R-A-K-E-S. Aisha whispered the completed sentence. "James, cut your brakes." I blinked once. "Yes." She stood abruptly, pacing, one hand over her mouth, the other shaking. "Jesus Christ, Grace, he tried to kill you." I blinked again. "Yes." Aisha pressed both palms against her cheeks, trying to steady herself. "Okay, listen to me. We need proof. More than your blink patterns, more than my suspicion. We need something undeniable." She paced again, then stopped suddenly. "The way he talks to you when he thinks you're unconscious, does he say things? Anything we could record?" I blinked once, strongly. Aisha nodded, tightening her ponytail like preparing for battle. "All right? Then we record him." The first trap Aisha returned the next morning before her official shift. Hoodie under her uniform, face set with determination. She placed her phone behind the tissue box near my head. The microphone pointed directly at the bed. "It's recording," she whispered. "If he says even one incriminating word, we'll have it." Her eyes met mine, fierce, protective, terrified. "Grace, we're doing this together, okay?" I blinked once, and then we waited. The air felt heavy, like the room itself knew danger was coming. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, confident, familiar, casual. James. He entered the room with the same rehearsed grief he always wore, the same fake tenderness. He brushed my hair back, a gesture that once meant love, now felt like contamination. "How's my girl today?" he murmured. My body didn't move, but inside, something curled away from him. He checked the machine, sighed deeply, a man performing for an invisible audience. "No change," he muttered, still unresponsive. Then Chloe slipped inside like a shadow. "Any update?" she whispered. James shook his head. "The consultants meet tomorrow. If they confirm it's hopeless, they'll let me decide about withdrawing the ventilator." Withdrawing. Me. Like I was a plug-in lamp. Chloe exhaled, relieved. "So, then, it'll finally be over." James chuckled under his breath. "Yeah, and we can move on. The insurance, the house, all of it." There it was, on audio. Aisha's phone captured every word. I wanted to scream, to shake the bed, to shatter the entire room. But I stayed still, because stillness was my weapon. James leaned close to my ear. "You won't feel a thing, sweetheart." My soul recoiled. But the recording captured it all. And then, as if the universe were emphasizing the point, the ventilator beeped loudly. Not from malfunction, from rage, from truth, from life. James tensed. "We shouldn't stay long," he whispered. "Look suspicious." They left quietly. The moment the door clicked shut, I felt my entire being collapse inward. Relief, terror, exhaustion. Aisha rushed in seconds later. She grabbed the phone, put in earbuds, and listened. Her eyes filled, her jaw clenched. When she pulled the earbuds out, her voice shook with fury. "Oh, Grace, we've got him." The morning of the consultant meeting felt different. The hospital corridor outside my room, usually a blur of soft beeps and muted footsteps, seemed charged, like the air before a storm. Something was coming, not just danger, justice, or at least the first flicker of it. Aisha slipped into my room just after 9 a.m., her face tense, her shoulders squared like someone entering a battlefield. "They're meeting at midday," she whispered, closing the door behind her, "and the detectives are already in the building." If my heart could have leapt, it would have. She continued in a low voice, "Dr. Whitman listened to the entire recording this morning, twice. He didn't say much, but his jaw was clenched the whole time." Aisha paced. "I think he's furious, Grace, not just for you, but because James tried to manipulate the entire system. He tried to use us to kill you." She stopped pacing and faced me. "Today changes everything, but we have to be perfect. No movement, no sign of consciousness. He must believe you're still trapped." I blinked once, slowly, a promise. Aisha took my hand and squeezed it. "I know you're scared, but you're also the strongest person I've ever met." Her voice shook, not with fear, but with pride. The detectives arrive undercover at 11:30 a.m. Two men in suits walked past my door, acting casual. But I recognized them, Detective Harris and Detective Lowell. The men Aisha mentioned. They didn't come inside, not yet, but they paused long enough for a subtle nod through the glass window, a respectful nod. A "we're here because of you" nod. My chest tightened. For the first time since the accident, I didn't feel invisible. Aisha returned just steps behind them and whispered, "They'll wait in a side room until James arrives. They want him relaxed, unaware, overconfident." My husband excelled at all three. The consultant meeting begins at 12:03. Dr. Whitman walked into my room. In his 50s, usually calm and clinical, he now carried the posture of a man holding a loaded truth. His voice was gentle, but his presence filled the room. "Good afternoon, Grace," he said, even though he believed I couldn't respond. It was the first kindness I'd received from him since the accident. He checked my monitors, noted something on his tablet, then stepped aside. Seconds later, footsteps. James. I heard his laugh in the hallway before I saw him. He was joking with a nurse. Joking. The man who planned my death arrived smiling. He entered with a fresh haircut, a pressed jacket, and the coffee breath confidence of someone certain the world would bend to his will. "Doctor," he said smoothly, "thank you for arranging this." Dr. Whitman nodded stiffly. "Before we discuss anything, I'd like to ask a few clarifying questions." James pretended to look worried, placing a hand on his chest, tilting his head. Of course, anything to help Grace. Anything to help himself, he meant. Dr. Whitman tapped his tablet. "We reviewed her scans again. Her brainstem responses are inconsistent. We're trying to rule out outside causes." James frowned. "What do you mean, outside causes?" "Mechanical failure," the doctor said, watching him closely. "Or sabotage." The room froze. My lungs, though machine-controlled, felt as if they'd stopped entirely. James blinked hard. "Sabotage? Surely you're not saying—" "We're not saying anything yet," Dr. Whitman replied, "only that the police intend to examine the vehicle again." James's mask cracked, only slightly, but enough that I saw the flicker of panic. "The police? Why?" Dr. Whitman shrugged lightly, as if it were routine. "Brake failure in a 2018 vehicle is somewhat irregular, especially one serviced recently. We need to understand the cause." James forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well, whatever they need. I'm sure it was just the rain. Grace always hated driving in bad weather." The implication was subtle. Blame the victim. Cement the narrative. Dr. Whitman nodded. "Perhaps, but someone else suggested she was an excellent driver." James's jaw tightened, barely noticeable. "Who said that?" Just then the door clicked open. Detective Harris walked in casually. "Oh, I did," he said, smiling politely. "Harris, Metropolitan Police." James's face drained of colour. The quiet collapse of a guilty man Detective Lowell followed, carrying a small recording device. James sputtered, Why are the police here?" "We're looking into all possibilities," Harris said lightly. "No need to worry if you've nothing to hide." James swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed like a buoy in a storm. Dr. Whitman stepped aside, leaving the detective standing at my bedside. Harris glanced at the machines, the tubes, the stillness of my body. "My condolences," he said softly. "You must be devastated." James nodded too quickly. "It's been horrible, truly horrible." Lowell tilted his head. "Then you'll be glad to know we may have found new information. Our specialists re-examined the brake system." James froze. Completely. Lowell continued. "They found marks inconsistent with accident damage, but perfectly consistent with human interference." Silence. Dangerous, suffocating silence. Then Harris leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Hale, is there anything you'd like to tell us before we proceed further?" James shook his head, palms open. "No, absolutely not. I loved my wife. Why would I ever harm her?" Loved. Past tense. Harris didn't miss it. "Interesting choice of words," James sputtered. I mean love. It's just, this is all overwhelming." Lowell clicked the recorder on the table. "Well then, perhaps you can help clarify something. We have an audio file here. Something you said recently. Something relevant." James's face contorted, disbelief giving way to rage. "You recorded me? That's illegal." Harris smiled calmly. "Oh, we didn't record you." He turned. He looked directly at me. She did. James spun towards me like a man seeing a ghost. The moment he realized the truth. For the first time since the accident, I looked directly into his eyes. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I stared. And in that moment, James understood. I knew. I had heard everything. I had been awake, alive, witnessing the entire performance. His face drained of blood. "Grace?" No, she can't." Lowell pressed the button. James's own voice filled the room. "Yeah, I did it. 2 days before the accident, I cut the brake lines. Just enough that they'd fail under pressure. She wasn't supposed to feel a thing." Dr. Whitman closed his eyes. Aisha sobbed. The detectives watched in silence. James stumbled backward until he hit the wall, breath rapid, eyes wild. This is taken out of context. She can't be awake. She can't." Harris stepped forward. "She is?" James shook his head violently. "Grace, you don't understand. I didn't mean—" Lowell cut him off sharply. "James Hale, you are under arrest for attempted murder." James bolted for the door. He didn't make it 2 steps. 2 officers waiting outside tackled him instantly. The entire hospital must have heard the scream he let out, and the world must have felt the scream I didn't let out. The moment James was dragged out of the room, the world didn't feel safer. It felt quieter, a strange, heavy quiet, the kind that comes after a bomb detonates when the dust hasn't settled and you can't tell if you survived or if you're just breathing inside the wreckage. Aisha touched my arm gently. "He's gone, Grace. He can't hurt you anymore." But trauma doesn't vanish just because the monster is handcuffed. If anything, it screams louder. The hospital turns into an investigation site. Within an hour, my room no longer felt like a hospital room. It felt like the center of a crime scene. 2 forensic officers took photographs of the machines, the bed, the hidden recording spot. Detective Harris spoke softly to Aisha, taking her statement, while Detective Lowell asked Dr. Whitman questions about the timeline. Every so often, one of them glanced at me, not like a patient, but like the key witness in a case that could make headlines, because it would. Attempted murder, insurance fraud, a staged accident, a comatose wife who wasn't actually comatose. It was a story built to explode. As the detectives left, Aisha leaned close. "They're taking him to the station for questioning. He's denying everything, of course, but the recording, the brake analysis, the confession, they've got him, Grace." I blinked once, but inside I thought, they don't have everything yet. There was Chloe, her tears, her apology, her involvement, her knowledge. She wasn't innocent. And something told me She wouldn't go down quietly. My sister arrives, and the truth shatters her by late afternoon. The nurses helped arrange something I didn't expect. A meeting with my family. My sister Emma arrived first, red-eyed, frantic, shaking as she approached my bed. Grace. Oh my God, Grace. She stroked my hair, sobbing into the blanket. I thought I'd lost you. For weeks I thought we were waiting for you to go. I wanted to tell her I was still here the whole time, that I'd been screaming for her. But only my eyes could speak. Aisha, standing beside her, said softly, "She's conscious, Emma. She has locked-in syndrome, not brain death. She's been aware for at least the last week. Maybe longer." Emma covered her mouth, eyes filling instantly. "She heard everything?" she whispered. Aisha's expression told her yes. My sister's grief transformed into something sharp, violent. "He did this," she choked. "That bastard did this to you." She lowered herself until her forehead rested against mine. "I won't let him win, Grace. I won't let him get away with any of this." Another blink. One long, painful blink. Aisha squeezed her shoulder. "The detectives will want to speak with you soon. But for now, stay with her. She needs you." It was the first moment since the accident that I felt held, seen, loved. And for a brief moment, the world felt soft again. The police return, with news that changes everything. At 7 p.m., the detectives came back. Both looked exhausted, like men who had spent the day chasing truths that didn't want to be caught. Detective Harris spoke first. "We've interviewed James. He denies cutting the brake lines entirely. His solicitor claims the recording was taken out of context." Emma scoffed loudly. "Out of context? He literally explained how he did it." Harris nodded. "We agree. But courts require more than outrage. They require airtight evidence." Detective Lowell opened a folder. We traced the tools used to tamper with the brake system. Marks from the metal file match, a set James owns. Emma clenched her fists. "Good." But Lowell didn't smile. "There's more." Aisha stiffened. "Chloe." Harris nodded grimly. "We took her in for questioning too. She admitted knowing about the insurance money, admitted James, talked about hospitals and timing." Emma hissed. "Of course she knew. That parasite." "But," Harris cut in, "she insists she didn't know about the brake lines. She claims James told her the crash was an accident." Emma scoffed again. "And you believe her?" Lowell sighed. "We don't believe her, but proving knowledge is different than suspecting it." Then he turned to me. "Grace, if you can, we need you to confirm something." He spoke gently, slowly, the way people speak to someone fragile. "When she came to your room last night, did she mention anything that suggested she knew the crash was deliberate?" My heart pounded. I blinked once. "Yes." Aisha fetched the letterboard. Painfully, slowly, I spelled out the words HEKNEWITWASFORINSURANCE. Emma drew a sharp breath. Detective Harris nodded, face tightening. "That's enough to bring her back in." But Lowell hesitated. "Even with that, she may try to negotiate, turn on James, claim duress, claim manipulation." Emma spat. "She was sleeping with him. That's manipulation?" But Harris wasn't listening anymore. He was watching me. Something had shifted in his expression. Respect. Maybe even awe. "Grace, you've given us more than most fully mobile witnesses ever could." I didn't feel heroic. I felt tired, exhausted in a way no amount of sleep could fix. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Aisha sees what no one else does. Once the detectives left, Aisha sat at my bedside, rubbing her eyes. "You did incredibly well today, Grace." I blinked once. Gratitude. Then she whispered, "But there's something else you need to prepare for." A soft dread slid into the room. Aisha continued. "James's solicitor might petition for bail. They may claim he's emotionally unstable, or that he was coerced, or that the recording is fabricated." Emma nearly exploded. "Absurd. He tried to murder her." Aisha nodded. But the legal system is complicated. These cases get ugly, fast. She leaned closer to me. And Chloe? If she flips on him, she'll turn herself into the victim. Say she was manipulated by a powerful man. Say she didn't understand. Say she tried to stop him. I blinked twice. Anger. Aisha nodded. I know, it's disgusting. But that's how people save themselves, by rewriting history. Emma growled through her teeth. I don't care what they say. Grace has the truth, and we're going to make sure the world hears it. Aisha placed a gentle hand on my wrist. She's right, but the next 48 hours will be turbulent. Courts, media statements, legal technicalities. Her voice softened. Grace, I need you to hold on, just a little longer. You've survived the worst part. Now you must survive the aftermath. I blinked once. A promise. But my mind whispered a question neither of them could hear. If James was desperate enough to cut my brakes, what would he do now that he knows I'm alive? Because a man facing prison for attempted murder is more dangerous than a man planning it. And somewhere in a police holding cell, James Hale now understood the one thing he never expected. I was not dead. I was not silent. I was coming for him. If Part 7 was the collapse of everything James built, Part 8 was the slow, suffocating aftermath, the darkness that crawls in after a storm, reminding you the danger isn't over. Because the truth doesn't just set you free, it shakes the world around you. And mine was only beginning to crack. James petitions for bail, and the hospital holds its breath. The next morning began with tension so heavy it felt like fog. Aisha burst into my room before sunrise, still in her coat, hair unbrushed. They're applying for bail, she said breathlessly. His solicitor is already at the magistrate's court. Emma cursed loudly. What grounds? He literally tried to murder her. Aisha shook her head in frustration. They're arguing emotional instability, claiming he acted out of stress, panic, grief, that he's not a flight risk. I wanted to scream. James? Not a flight risk? He'd flee the country before lunch if he could. Aisha continued. If bail is granted, he could walk out by this afternoon. And if he walks out... She didn't finish. She didn't have to. The air in the room thickened until it felt impossible to breathe. Emma grabbed my hand fiercely. He won't get near you again, over my dead body. Her voice cracked, a mixture of fury and terror. Detective Harris returns with incomplete news at 10 a.m. Detective Harris walked in, face grim. Grace, he said softly, Emma, Aisha, we need to talk. Emma folded her arms tightly. Tell us he's being held. Please. Harris exhaled slowly. The bail hearing is ongoing. His solicitor is arguing he poses no threat because Grace cannot testify verbally. Aisha gasped. But she can testify with the letterboard, with blinking. Yes, Harris said gently, but the defense is claiming her condition makes her an unreliable witness. My stomach dropped. Unreliable. I had listened. I had understood. I remembered every word, every whisper, every plan. But the law didn't care about memory unless it spoke clearly. Harris continued, We're countering hard. We've got the recording. We've got break analysis. We've got motive. But his solicitor is skilled. He's painting James as a grieving husband who cracked under pressure. Emma nearly lunged forward. Grieving? He was planning holiday trips with Chloe. Harris nodded sharply. We're using that too, but it's going to be close. He placed a reassuring hand on the bed railing. Grace, whatever happens in the next few hours, we will protect you. But fear had already crept beneath my skin, curling like cold smoke around my ribs. Chloe's final move, and the betrayal no one expected. At noon, when the hospital was at its busiest, the one person none of us expected walked into the waiting area. Chloe. Aisha saw her first through the glass window and swore under her breath. Oh, absolutely not. Emma turned. Her face went white with rage. You've got some nerve showing up here. Chloe lifted her hands defensively. I'm here to help. Emma took one step toward her. You helped by climbing into his bed while he planned to murder my sister. I didn't know, Chloe cried, eyes already glossy with tears. I didn't know he really meant to do it. I wanted to scream, liar. You knew enough to fear me waking up. Aisha blocked Emma from getting closer. Why are you here, Chloe? Chloe swallowed hard. The police. They said if I cooperate, they'll consider a lesser charge. I want to make a statement. Emma scoffed loudly. So you're not here for Grace. You're here to save yourself. Chloe looked down, ashamed, or pretending to be. I need to do the right thing now. Aisha crossed her arms. Then start by telling us everything. Chloe's lower lip trembled. James told me the accident wasn't entirely accidental. He didn't say he cut the brakes, not directly. He just said he did something to make sure she wouldn't suffer long. Emma nearly exploded. He told you he sabotaged the car and you stayed with him? Chloe flinched. I was scared. He said if I left he'd ruin me. He said I knew too much. Emma barked out a humorless laugh. Oh, now you were the victim? Chloe wiped her face. I know how it sounds, but I didn't think he'd actually try to kill her. I thought he meant, I don't know, neglect or something. I blinked twice, hard. Lies, all lies. Aisha, however, was watching Chloe carefully, studying inconsistencies. What about the house, the insurance, the proposal? Chloe's eyes widened with panic. You heard that? Emma narrowed her eyes. She asked if Grace was awake last night. She wanted to check. If she were innocent, why check? Chloe shook her head frantically. No, I wanted to be sure she wasn't suffering. Emma cut her off. Save it for the detectives. Grace saw your true face. Chloe bit her lip so hard it nearly bled. Then she walked out with the detectives looking smaller than she ever had. But not small enough to be forgiven. Not by me. The bail decision arrives and breaks the room open. At 3:27 p.m, Harris and Lowell returned. No one spoke. Aisha held my hand. Emma stood rigid, fists clenched. Detective Harris finally exhaled. Bail was denied. Emma collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief. Aisha wiped her eyes. Detective Lowell continued. The judge called him a danger to the victim, a danger to the public, and a flight risk. Emma let out a shaky laugh. Good, good. But Harris wasn't smiling. However, James's solicitor has already petitioned for a psychiatric evaluation. He may try to claim diminished responsibility. Emma's jaw dropped. Oh, for God's sake! Harris held up a hand. This is normal in cases like this. It won't stall the investigation for long, but it means things are about to get louder. Aisha frowned. Louder how? Lowell gestured vaguely toward the window. Press is already outside. Emma groaned into her hands. Fantastic. Grace becomes the centre of a legal war. For the next several hours, the hospital room filled with an endless rotation of people, lawyers, social workers, neurologists, detectives, a crisis communications officer, all asking the same thing. Grace, can you blink for yes? Grace, can you spell this? Grace, can you confirm that? Every question felt like lifting a mountain with my eyelids. Emma eventually snapped at them. She's exhausted. She's been through hell. Can't this wait? But it couldn't, because I had become more than a victim. I had become evidence, a living, breathing piece of the case. The weight of that settled over me like a second paralysis. This one, emotional, not physical. Aisha leaned close once the room emptied. Grace, I need to say something and you might not like it. Her tone made my stomach clench. You need to be prepared for the idea that James's solicitor might try to question your cognition. They may claim you misinterpreted what you heard, or that your memory is compromised. Emma flared up. She remembers everything. She's the most lucid person in this room. Aisha nodded. I know, but defense lawyers are relentless. Then she looked into my eyes, directly, fiercely. But you have something they can't break. Truth spoken the moment it was born. Your account isn't from months ago. It's from right now. Fresh, precise, and supported by recordings. She placed her hand over mine. You're not just a survivor, Grace. You're the witness that will lock him away. One blink, a vow, a fire, a war cry inside my unmoving body, because the further James pushed into darkness, the brighter my truth became. And tomorrow, the world would finally hear it. There is a strange kind of silence that settles over a hospital at dawn. Not the peaceful healing sort people imagine, but the heavy quiet that happens right before something breaks. That was the silence I woke into. Aisha was already sitting beside me, scrolling through her phone with the stiff posture of someone reading bad news. Emma was asleep in the corner chair, arms crossed, head tilted back, still wearing yesterday's clothes. The moment Aisha noticed my eyes open, she straightened. Grace, you need to see this. She held up her phone. Front page headlines. National newspapers, not local. My name. James's face. The Manchester brake line case. Husband accused of attempted murder of hospitalised wife. Locked-in victim may offer crucial testimony. My stomach tightened. Or it would have if my body obeyed me. Instead, a cold wave washed across my skin. Emma woke with a small gasp, rubbed her eyes and saw the screen. Oh God, it's everywhere now. Aisha nodded grimly. Judges hate media storms. Barristers adore them. Today is going to be brutal. She wasn't wrong. Today wasn't the trial. But it was the day everything would tilt, either toward justice or toward James walking free. And the world was suddenly watching. The prosecution arrives, and they need me more than ever. At 8:12 a.m., the door opened and 3 people walked in. 2 prosecutors, a woman in her 40s with clipped vowels and sharp eyes, and a younger man who looked like he lived inside a courtroom. The third was a communications officer from the Crown Prosecution Service. The woman stepped forward. Grace, I'm Senior Crown Prosecutor Eleanor Shaw. This is Mr. Patel. We'll be leading the case against your husband. Emma muttered under her breath. Good. He'll need a bloody miracle now. Ms. Shaw didn't smile. She sat on the edge of the bed, her face close to mine, all business. Grace, today we need complete clarity from you. No hesitation, no fear. The defense will use anything, to undermine your credibility. Aisha bristled. She's telling the truth. She's been consistent since day one. Ms. Shaw nodded politely. Yes, but truth isn't always enough. We need precision. She placed a letterboard on my lap, the same one Emma had used that first night. Grace, this morning we're formalizing your witness statement. Blink for yes, twice for no. Spell anything unclear. I need you to confirm everything exactly as you heard it. It took more than an hour of reliving each word James whispered over my helpless body, each mocking laugh from Chloe, each horrific moment where they spoke about my death as if it were a house sale. When we finished, Ms. Tuck, Shaw leaned back, deeply satisfied. This, she said quietly, is enough to convict. But Mr. Patel frowned. There is one complication. Everyone froze. He continued. James is claiming diminished responsibility, a mental breakdown triggered by grief. Emma jumped to her feet. Grief? Grief? He wasn't grieving. He was checking flight prices with his mistress. Ms. Shaw lifted a hand. We know. You know. Grace knows. But the court must be shown. And to do that, we need Grace to testify. Emma inhaled sharply. She can't speak. No, Ms. Shaw agreed, but she can communicate, and the jury will believe her face before they believe his words. I blinked once. Yes, I was ready. Or at least, I had no choice but to be. An unexpected visitor and a hope I didn't ask for late morning brought another knock. Dr. Rowan stepped in, not smiling this time. I've just received the latest neurological report. Emma stiffened. Is something wrong? He hesitated. No, actually, there's improvement. Aisha grabbed the bed rail. What kind of improvement? Dr. Rowan moved closer, eyes bright with something like cautious hope. Grace, can you try moving your right hand? Just the smallest twitch? I focused, poured every shred of willpower into that one command. Move, move, move. My fingers trembled, just once, but unmistakably. Emma gasped so loudly, a nurse poked her head in. Aisha covered her mouth. Dr. Rowan exhaled a shaky breath. This is remarkable. The neural pathways are reconnecting faster than expected. If this continues, we could see partial mobility return within weeks, perhaps even speech with the right therapy. Emma cried openly now. Oh, Grace, oh, sweetheart. I blinked, long, slow. Full of emotion, my body still couldn't express. Dr. Rowan leaned closer. This changes things. If you regain your voice, even partially, the defense loses its strongest argument. Aisha turned to me. Do you hear that? Your voice is coming back. James won't silence you ever again. It was hope I hadn't dared ask for. But hope is dangerous, because hope can be used against you, and it was, sooner than any of us expected. The defense strikes first. At 1:40 p.m., Detective Harris returned, jaw tight. Brace yourselves. The defense attorney gave a statement to the press. He handed his phone to Emma. The headline punched harder than any fist. Husband's lawyer. This case is built on emotion, not fact. The quote beneath made my blood run cold. My client has suffered immensely. His wife's tragic neurological condition makes recollection unreliable. We urge the public not to judge until all medical uncertainties are addressed. Uncertainties. That was the word he'd chosen. Aisha clenched her fists. They're going to try to paint her as confused, hallucinating, as if she dreamt the entire thing. Emma paced, furious. And what? The brake lines cut themselves? The recording forged itself? But Harris looked grimmer still. That's not all. They're claiming James's confession was emotional venting, not an admission of guilt. Mr. Patel, the prosecutor, sighed. They're laying the groundwork, not to win outright, but to plant doubt in a single juror's mind. One juror, that's all it would take. One person to think, maybe she misheard, maybe she misunderstood, maybe the husband isn't a monster. Harris put his phone away. We hit back hard tomorrow, we bring in the forensics, we highlight the recordings, and we let them see Grace herself. He looked at me then, long, searching. Grace, I need you to be ready. I blinked once. I was. Nightfall, and a new kind of fear. When the room finally emptied, the corridor outside echoed with reporters shouting into cameras. This was beyond Manchester now, beyond the hospital, beyond the quiet little cul-de-sac where my life once made sense. I wasn't just Grace anymore. I'd become a case, a headline, a warning. Emma dimmed the lights. Aisha sat on the windowsill, arms wrapped around her knees, watching the world blur into orange street lamps and blue police lights. Tomorrow, she whispered, everything changes. Emma brushed my hair back gently. You don't have to be brave, Grace. You just have to be honest. The truth is enough. But as the hospital settled into its nighttime hum, a darker thought crept in. What if the truth wasn't enough? What if James, charming, calculating James, could twist the narrative again? What if the jury saw him and saw a grieving man? What if the system I was counting on failed? My heart monitor beeped faster. Emma noticed and squeezed my hand. No, she whispered firmly, fiercely. You survived him. That's already your victory. Tomorrow is his reckoning. And beneath the fear, beneath the shaking and the dread and the exhaustion, something else pulsed, not hope this time. Resolve. A cold, steady, razor-sharp resolve. Tomorrow James would face the truth, and so would the world. There are days that carve themselves into history, days that split a life into a before and an after. The morning of the preliminary hearing was one of those days. The hospital was unusually alive for 6 a.m. Press vans lined the street. Security guards patrolled the corridors as if guarding royalty. Every nurse moved with hushed urgency. Because today, for the first time since James tried to kill me, I would see him again. Not through a memory, not through a recording, but face to face, even if I was still in my hospital bed. Emma was the first to speak that morning, voice soft, hands trembling slightly. "Are you sure you can handle this, love?" One blink. Yes. I didn't survive him. I was going to confront him. Aisha adjusted the medical monitors, trying to look calm, but failing miserably. "If he so much as steps 1 foot too close, I swear I'll—" "Aisha." Emma cut her off gently. "She's safe. That's what matters today." But even Emma's voice held a crack. No one knew what James would do. No one knew how he would spin his lies. No one knew whether the world would believe a man in a suit over a woman who could not speak. That was the terror that gnawed at the edges of my mind. Because in Britain, juries look at body language, tone, composure, and I had none of those weapons. All I had was truth, and truth is rarely the loudest voice in the room. The transport to court at 8:30 a.m., 2 paramedics arrived with a specialised transport bed, the kind designed for patients who must appear in court but cannot sit or stand. Behind them came Detective Harris and Detective Lowell. Harris gave me a small nod, half reassurance, half apology. "Grace, the judge allowed remote testimony, but the prosecution insisted you be present in person. The defence called you a phantom witness. We want the jury to see you're real." I blinked slowly. Good. Let them see me. Let him see me. The hallway was lined with hospital staff who paused their work just to watch me pass. Some placed hands on their hearts, some whispered prayers, some simply stared, not out of pity, but out of awe. It hit me then. People weren't rooting for James. People weren't confused. People weren't divided. They were with me. And that meant more than I could ever say. The courtroom and the man who thought he could end me. The courtroom smelled of old wood, disinfectant and tension. My bed was positioned beside the prosecution table. Emma stood at my right, Aisha at my left. Behind me, a wall of police officers, and then the door opened. James entered in handcuffs. He looked smaller than I remembered, thinner, haunted, but not repentant. When he saw me, really saw me, he froze. His jaw dropped, his eyes widened, colour drained from his face, because I wasn't the silent ghost he expected. I was awake, aware, staring directly at him. He mouthed something I couldn't hear. Emma leaned closer to whisper. He just said, "Grace, please, please." The same word he whispered to Chloe, the same word he used when manipulating me for years. But now the word held no power. I blinked, slowly, deliberately, the movement of someone who had returned from a place he could never imagine, and he flinched. For the first time since this nightmare began, he was afraid of me. "The prosecution speaks." Senior Prosecutor Eleanor Shaw rose first. Her voice sliced through the room like sharpened steel. "Your Honour, today the Crown will demonstrate that the defendant, James Whitmore, engaged in a calculated, deliberate attempt to murder his wife, Grace Whitmore, for financial gain." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Ms. Shaw continued, "We will present forensic evidence of brake line tampering, audio recordings of the defendant confessing to the crime, and, most importantly, the presence of the victim herself, who, despite extraordinary injuries, has retained full mental capacity and is prepared to testify. Aisha squeezed my hand. Emma nodded proudly. James swallowed hard. For a moment I felt powerful, not despite my weakness, but because I had survived it. The defence strikes back. James's barrister stood, a man with silver hair and eyes that gleamed with polished arrogance. "Your Honour," he began smoothly, "we do not dispute that Mrs. Whitmore's accident was tragic. We do not dispute that the recordings are emotionally distressing. But we do dispute their reliability." He stepped closer to my bed. Too close. Mrs. Whitmore suffers from severe neurological trauma. Her perceptions, memories and interpretations may be compromised. Emma hissed, "Get away from her." But the judge didn't intervene. Not yet. The barrister continued, "The Crown claims she is fully conscious. But brain injury affects more than consciousness. It affects comprehension, interpretation, context, dreams, hallucinations." Aisha stiffened. "He's trying to say you imagined the confession," she whispered. The barrister turned toward the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, before you condemn a man to decades in prison, consider this. Is it possible Mrs. Whitmore misheard, misremembered, or worse, dreamed these events?" My monitor beeped faster, not from fear, from rage, because he was doing exactly what James always did, twisting reality until truth bent around him. But then, before the judge could stop him, the barrister leaned close to my face and said quietly, "Mrs. Whitmore, are you sure you're not confused?" Emma was across the room in 2 seconds. Back, away, from her. Security grabbed him by the shoulders and pulled him aside. The judge slammed her gavel. "That is enough. Sit down, Mr. Rowan." Yes, his name was Rowan. And for a moment, the coincidence with Dr. Rowan felt almost symbolic. Good and evil sharing a surname. The moment the court believed me. The judge turned to Miss Shaw. "Does the Crown wish to proceed with the victim's testimony?" Ms. Shaw nodded. "Yes, Your Honour." She approached my bedside. "Grace, I know this is difficult, but please answer with a single blink for yes, 2 blinks for no." She took a breath. "Grace, did you hear the defendant discuss your death while you were conscious?" I blinked once. Gasps filled the gallery. "Did he express a desire that you not wake up?" 1 blink. "Did he discuss removing your life support?" 1 blink. "Did he speak of travelling abroad, using your insurance payout?" 1 blink. "Did he admit to tampering with your brake lines?" My heart hammered. The courtroom leaned in. I blinked. Once. Silence fell. The heavy kind. The kind that chokes a room. "Ms. Shaw continued softly. "And Grace, are you certain you did not hallucinate these events?" 2 blinks. "No." The judge scribbled rapidly. Jurors exchanged shocked glances. Even reporters lowered their phones, processing what they had witnessed. But the real impact came next. Ms. Shaw stepped aside. Inspector Harris pressed a button. And the recording, the one Emma captured that night, filled the courtroom. James's voice, clear, cold, calculating. "I cut the brake lines. She'll be gone soon. Then we'll have the money." People in the gallery gasped. Someone swore under their breath. A woman started crying. James broke. "I didn't mean it. It wasn't. She doesn't understand. Grace, Grace, please." But his words drowned under the sound of his own confession. For the first time since the crash, the world heard what I heard. The truth, ugly, undeniable, fatal to him. James sank to his knees as guards dragged him upright. Emma leaned close to me and whispered, "You did it, darling. You won." But she was wrong. This wasn't victory. Not yet. The final blow. My first word, as the courtroom descended into chaos, Dr. Rowan, and the good Rowan, rushed to my bedside. "Grace, your heart rate is spiking. I need you to breathe slowly, in and out." But something else was happening, a pressure in my throat, a vibration I hadn't felt in months, a sound trying to claw its way through my broken voice box. Emma froze. Aisha gasped. "Grace? Grace? Are you trying to—" The judge called for order, but the room had already shifted. I focused harder than I ever had in my life. And then my voice broke free, a hoarse whisper, barely a sound. But unmistakably mine. Enough. The entire courtroom stopped breathing. James looked like he'd been shot. Emma burst into tears. Aisha covered her mouth. Dr. Rowan's face lit with awe. I forced one more word, just one. "Stop." The judge stood. With the victim regaining speech and with overwhelming evidence presented, the court finds cause to remand the defendant for full trial. Bail denied. Proceedings adjourned. The gavel fell. James collapsed. And I had spoken. For the first time since the night he tried to kill me, I had taken back my voice. In the quiet days that followed the hearing, something inside me settled. Not because justice had already been served, James's trial was still ahead, but because for the first time since the crash, I felt the weight of his shadow lift from my life. Recovery is slow, painful, uncertain, but every twitch of my fingers, every strained breath, every rasp of my returning voice was a reminder that I had survived the very thing meant to end me. And survival is not passive. It is defiant. It is loud, even when your body cannot be. I don't know what the future looks like, but I do know this. James no longer gets to decide the shape of my world. I do. And as long as I keep breathing, my story will not be one of what he tried to destroy, but of everything he failed to take from me.